Standing out here in the rain talking to you folks. It's coming down pretty steady. I'm getting a little wet here, so I'm gonna try to make this quick and talk fast. First of all, I want to say I hope you had a great New Year's Eve bash. I hope you partied and got it all out of your system. I hope you're planning on doing some better things for your life in 2017. It's a new year, guys. It's time to try to get on the good foot. Not like James Brown, but let's just try to make a better effort to do some good things this year. You know, but you know, when you think about how people how people tend to treat each other poorly in situations unnecessarily. And how many times have you folks found yourself in awkward situations, in situations where conflict ensued, and you put yourself in that position and you don't know how you came to be in that space, and next thing you know there's a fight, or there's words being exchanged, heated exchanges, and you just don't know how you got there. Okay? And what I'm going to talk to you guys about tonight, and I'm going to do this quickly because I'm going to see about how quickly I can do this in the rain and make my point to you guys, and try to get you to understand some things that could really be beneficial to you in these situations, because they don't have to necessarily happen. I'm sure that in an afterthought, you wouldn't want to see this happen. You wouldn't want to have to experience this, or you may have regretted some things you have said, or the other person may feel the same way. So this is going to be effective in scaling back some of that unnecessary conflict, and really the premise of most of this stuff is respect, and I talk about that a lot, and some components of respect. Practicing humility is a great way to diffuse some of this egoistic type of conflict that comes from people having misunderstandings and saying the wrong things because they misinterpreted what someone else was doing or their actions, and they felt slighted and disrespected. And so instead of taking a grandiose stand about who they are, how dare you disrespect me as a person, and my ego is so inflated, then take a step back and practice some humility, and maybe you'll find out that the person wasn't necessarily trying to be disrespectful to you. You just misinterpreted the situation. Okay? In situations where people have authority and bestowed upon them by society, i.e. your cops, your judges, school teachers and stuff like that, a lot of these people really need to practice, because they're humans. When the day is done, they're just humans, and they put on their pants the same way we all do. Okay? And a lot of times this authority and this power that's bestowed on them allows them to be disrespectful in situations they don't necessarily have to be, because that power gives them the know-all, see-all type of mindset, and they just don't really look at themselves or view themselves in the same light as they see just everyday humans. They're above that. They're above the fray. And that's a problem. That's a problem because that is a poor character trait. And I suspect many of you gravitated to some of these power positions in society for the mere purpose of suppressing others. And when we go into that is a flaw that you have, that you really need to work on and put some time into yourself so you can be better. The world can be a better place. I keep saying this shit, But there was a situation where I was at a barber shop recently, and I was just sitting around waiting to get a haircut and just minding my business and just taking in the scene, because I like to observe people, and I know that I'm going to see some foolishness before it's all over with. And so I'm just sitting back observing, and so this police officer comes into the barber shop. Apparently he's a regular customer. He comes in all the time. And he greets an older gentleman leaving out, and they talk for a minute. He says hello to the guy, and they talk. And so this young guy gets up and goes to get a cut from the barber. He's going to talk to the older barber gentleman. And so the cop says, well, good morning to you. and says it in a way as if the young man had disrespected him. And I was sitting back watching the whole thing. The young guy was simply going, first of all, those two men were having a discussion, and they weren't involving the younger guy who was going to simply just be a patron and get his hair cut. And he was making eye contact with the barber, and they were about to exchange, what he needed to get done, and he was going to get in the chair and get his hair cut. And so he was on his way to the chair, and so that exchange happened. And so it picked up as he got in the chair. And so he made a comment that really, I was sort of impressed by how he handled himself, because he sort of expressed humility. Now, I wouldn't have necessarily expected this guy to, based on how he looked, to have this type of mindset and handle the situation coming based on the way he handled it. But he did a pretty good job. And that diffused the situation totally, which is why I think this is important for you guys to grab this. But they went back and forth, to make a long story short, about why the cop felt disrespected. And I think actually it was a situation where the cop felt like, hey, I'm a cop, acknowledge me. But the cop did not acknowledge the young man. And so the young man looks at the cop and says, and this was the thing that really caught me. He looks at the cop and he says, if you had you looked me in my eye and greeted me, then I would have given you a formal hello. And I was blown away by that, because the cop couldn't say anything, because he didn't do that. He wasn't talking to the guy. He just came in and said hello to the older gentleman, and he expected everyone in there to like greet him, and all eyes should be on him simply because of his place of authority. Now, he said it wasn't a problem. He told the young man that it wasn't a problem. They went back and forth. And I thought to myself, if it wasn't a problem, then you wouldn't have started it off as a problem. And you would have taken some time to maybe understand where this young man was coming from before you assumed that he was trying to be disrespectful to you. And really, they cleared it up and everything. The young man explained he wasn't coming from that place. And he expressed humility towards this officer, and in exchange, the officer felt humbled by that situation, and then he came back at him with the same amount of humility. Because I'm trying to get this out here, it's starting to rain and shit. I'm starting to get a little wet, and I want to really get this point sold to you. Showing humility will greatly diffuse a situation. Some of you all had family gatherings over the holidays last year, and and maybe someone at the table said the wrong thing. Maybe you put on a few pounds and someone mentioned that, and that was very tactless on their part. But how you handle that shows who's the bigger person, right? And I want y'all to really focus at it. It's 2017. We're going to try to do some new things. I'm going to try to give you guys some better tips about improving yourselves and starting to build on yourselves and coming up with some resolutions, not because it's cliche-ish, not because people do it every year and then fail on them miserably and horribly, but because there are things that you should set in place for yourself to better yourself. And there's always room for improvement for us all. Okay? So, I want y'all to check that out and be on the lookout for that video, because it's really, I think you'll really get a great deal of help with that from that video, and I think you'll learn some things. And it's really about being better, because if you feel better, your life will be better. Make no mistake about that. You could be in any predicament, but if you feel good inside up here, then everything else you can deal with, and you can navigate these rocky, troubled waters in life. Okay? Because I don't want to see you guys cutting up all the time. I love bad behavior. I do. But I also love to see people try to not display bad behavior. Very important. So the next time you find yourself in the rain and you're thinking about, and you're taking a walk, and maybe you got in a fight or something happened and you left to cool off, think about what you contributed to that conflict and how much your ego played into what happens in a situation at any given time. What you need to do is be prepared to diffuse the situation. Okay? Deflate your sense of great importance. Get on the level of human to human, eye to eye, man to man, and maybe some respect will be garnered between both people. Y'all have a good night.